Examining the pages of history reveals a disturbing legacy: inbreeding among siblings. Beyond the boundaries of tradition, this practice wove a tapestry of pain and anguish, leaving an indelible imprint on successive generations. In this video, we will explore shadows of history, the haunting legacy of inbreeding among siblings, revealing tales of suffering. Inbreeding has woven its sinister thread through the centuries, from the royal families of Europe to the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, into the magnificent tapestry of human history, interwoven with the rise and collapse of empires and the birth and death of civilizations. This disquieting melody was heard throughout the corridors of power. But what were the results of this procedure, and how did it impact the future? Take Charles II of Spain, the unlucky offspring of the Habsburg inbreeding that ultimately brought down the Spanish Habsburg dynasty in the late 17th century due to his many health problems and inability to procreate. It might come as news to many that has been a past of inbreeding among siblings and a historical legacy of pain and suffering. Consider ancient Egyptian pharaohs like Tutankhamun, who suffered from physical deformities and health problems since he was the product of a relationship between his sister and his brother. Of course, you may wonder why these prominent people engaged in behavior that we now know to be harmful to their health. The solutions are nearly as complicated as the DNA codes themselves. It entwines goals including family lineage preservation, power centralization, and relationship management. The reasons were complex and intertwined with the nature of society and government at the time. Charles Darwin made the astute observation that over the course of evolution, the most successful societies have been those whose members were able to work together and think on their feet. Consolidating power through inbreeding may have worked in the short term, but it was a risky bet given nature's emphasis on variety. Come with us as we explore the murky waters of inbreeding in the past, revealing the tragic stories and analyzing the far-reaching effects of this divisive practice. The term inbreeding refers to the practice of marrying within the same family, which has been more common in the past than you might think. Societies and civilizations of all sizes, from tiny islands to vast empires, played a role in orchestrating these marriages. One could wonder why this is such a common occurrence. The reasons varied as much as the cultures involved. For example, in ancient times, people thought it was important to keep the family tree inside the tribe. This was a premeditated action, taken in an effort to preserve family name, social standing, and even financial security. Besides their mysterious hieroglyphs and towering pyramids, the royal family of Egypt was also well known for its marriage customs, which included the practice of sibling marriage. The wedding of Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti was so monumental that its effects can be felt even today. Their dramatic and emotional tale was a symbol of the cultural mores of the time in which it was set. They wanted to ensure that the throne never went to an unworthy ruler. Therefore, they took steps to ensure that their bloodline would remain intact. However, inbreeding wasn't just a problem in the Nile Delta region. It made its way over seas and continents to the royal courts of Europe. The House of Habsburg, whose name still resounds in the annals of Europe's past, was notorious for comparable excesses. A physical trait known as the Habsburg jaw testified to the widespread intermarrying within their families. The repercussions of such actions should not be overlooked. The maintenance of authority and social standing sometimes came at the expense of preserving attractive features and health, as close bloodlines increased the likelihood of undesirable traits and illnesses. The same Habsburg jaw became a symbol of the health problems that ultimately brought down the bloodline. It's a common misconception that this only happened inside royal or noble families. Even in secret societies, where no one could see them, inbreeding was discovered. Lack of available partners, geographical isolation, and societal standards were common factors in this region. Tristan da Cuna's isolated settlements are a perfect illustration of this phenomenon, the Pharaonic dance of families, as told by the sands of time. As we make our way through the ever-changing dunes of time, we find ourselves increasingly drawn to the Nile Valley, a cradle of ancient civilization that profoundly influenced the path of human events. Egypt's Pharaonic era was a time of great splendor. Their mysterious customs and fascinating legacy are written in stone here in this timeless landscape. The custom of inbreeding is one of these practices that has been deeply embedded in their history. During the time of Nama, who is widely regarded as the unifier of Egypt, this practice was established, which dates back to the earliest beginnings of Egyptian dynastic control around 3100 BC. The Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt from 305 BC to 30 BC, saw the peak of this movement towards maintaining the integrity of the family line. The story of Ptolemy, the second Philadelphus, is at the center of this dynasty. A pharaoh whose union with his own sister, Sinoi II, caused much intrigue and debate. The Ptolemaic pharaohs would often provide divine approval to their extramarital affairs by linking themselves to the gods Isis and Osiris. Another fascinating episode in this saga is the life of Cleopatra VII, the final active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Cleopatra was the result of intermarrying families for several generations and was famous for her wit and charm. Following in the footsteps of her forefathers, she married off two of her younger brothers. It wasn't just a ritual or a show of authority, though. There was also some overt politics going on. The pharaohs ensured the consolidation of power and wealth by marrying within the family, thus warding off any aspiring outsiders. The line of succession was secured, and the royal blood stayed within the royal family. But there were dark sides to this method as well. Health problems sometimes shown themselves as a result of the mixing of so many closely related lineages. Monarch Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, is a touching example because he became monarch at the youthful age of 9. Multiple diseases, including as clubfoot and malaria, have been detected in his mummy and traced back to generations of inbreeding. Remember that this was serious business, not a dry run. The history of inbreeding among the British royal family is under scrutiny. The British royal family has a long tradition of intermarriage, albeit it is not as notorious as that of the Pharaohs of Egypt or the Habsburgs. The practice of marrying inside one's own family has its origins in the Middle Ages, when it was essential to consolidate power and maintain connections. The union of King Edward III and his second cousin launched a family tree that would have far-reaching effects on British history. During her reign, Queen Victoria's offspring married into numerous European royal families, establishing a web of ties across the continent. Hemophilia, a condition that prevents blood from clotting, spread through the royal dynasty as a result of the practice of marrying close relatives. Changing societal mores and a better grasp of genetics contributed to the decline of in-law marriages in the 20th century. The effects of inbreeding on human genetics have been seen throughout time and have had both physical and mental health repercussions. Advances in genetic counseling and screening give hope to underserved groups that continue to practice consanguineous marriages, despite a better grasp of the hazards associated with inbreeding made possible by recent scientific breakthroughs. Inbreeding occurs in a wide variety of settings, and many examples exist. Genetic counseling has been shown to reduce inbreeding hazards, thanks in large part to the work of trailblazers like Sheldon Reed. We'll look at Charles Darwin's research on the consequences of inbreeding in plants and animals, and the animal realm, where inbreeding is a prevalent strategy for many species. Both the Florida panther and the Galapagos hawk are examples of the effects and resilience of inbreeding in the animal kingdom. Haplodiploidy in insects leads to inbreeding among highly related sisters, which in turn promotes cooperative societies. In geographically isolated human communities like Tristan da Cunha, where a lack of genetic variation has resulted in the prevalence of hereditary illnesses, a new narrative of genetics and ancestry has emerged. In the past, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, served as an example of a group that encouraged and condoned polygamy and large families. Because of their remoteness and inbreeding, many people in the group could only trace their family tree back several generations. This increased the risk of developing rare genetic illnesses. Communities like the FLDS formerly suffered from inbreeding's ill effects, but with the advent of genetic testing and counseling, they are now able to identify carriers of recessive genes and receive help on how to control the risks. In many countries, it is illegal for first-degree relatives to marry each other in an effort to reduce the likelihood of offspring with undesirable traits due to genetic similarity. Different cultures and countries take different approaches to these laws in an effort to limit inbreeding. Remember the English Haldane sisters, who considered marrying each other to avoid passing on a genetic disorder? The effects of inbreeding on the incidence of genetic illnesses like cystic fibrosis and thalassemia are also discussed, along with the promise held out by gene therapy and preventative measures like pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. Animals in zoos and conservation programs have strict breeding protocols in place to increase genetic diversity and decrease inbreeding. Some populations, like those of the Florida panther and the Galapagos giant tortoise, have been revived thanks to successful conservation efforts and the incorporation of new genetic material. However, problems arise when trying to ensure the long-term health of these species in their native environments, while also controlling inbreeding. A complex investigation of how inbreeding can be created out of misplaced familial love and responsibility is offered in fictional and media depictions of inbreeding, such as the Lannister family in Game of Thrones and the portrayal of intermarriage within the British royal family in The Crown. Shocking, right? Have you subscribed yet? Be sure to do so now for more thrilling stories. There are 2 works of fiction that explore sibling inbreeding. The Spanish film The Nameless shows a covert group who practice inbreeding in order to create a genetically superior race, highlighting the dark side of letting erroneous ideals set social standards. The Japanese manga and anime Koikaze does a similar thing, examining the social and emotional ramifications of a sexual relationship between brothers who have been separated and then reunited. These pieces prompt consideration of the assumptions we make about family and community. The complex web of inbreeding and its genetic ramifications serves as a reminder of the mutually reinforcing effects of nature and nurture, informing the lasting legacy left by our ancestors' genes. The rapid development of genetic technology has given us the ability to rewrite history in a way that promotes health and prosperity for future generations. You will not believe this shocking new revelation shocks the world. Click on the next video to find out more. Now, you don't want to miss it.